Viral Media Network presents the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Today's guest, Rob Reddy, Artistic Director of PianoFight. Welcome to the Sam Jack Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I am your host, DJ Lumberjack, aka Sam Jack. We just did a virtual toast with my main man, Rob Reddy. How you doing, brother? Welcome. Good. Thanks for being on the show. And
thanks for having me.
Tell me what is new. If you don't know, he is the artistic director, excuse me, at PianoFight. So for those of you that don't know about PianoFight, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 5 years, tell them about what you do there and what gets you up in the morning. I know we'll talk a little bit about the current situation with the coronavirus, but tell me, please, just a little background on your theater and what you guys do there at PianoFight.
Sure, yeah. We're basically a new works by new artists theater. So there's a 100-seat theater and a 50-seat theater, and the back of house and front of house is about a 150-person restaurant bar with a music stage. And we book about 20 to 25 shows a week, ranging from sketch, stand-up, improv, to plays, to musicals, to variety shows, magic, drag, burlesque, film screenings, live podcasts, clown shows, everything you can think of. And it's all new stuff, all by new artists, local artists. And yeah, that just runs. We run 52 weeks a year, just cranking out.
Very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our jam.
And multiple spaces. It's not just one theater. You guys have a couple of theaters. You have a front room. You have an awesome kitchen. And, obviously it didn't happen overnight. I met you guys before you moved into that space, when you were, I believe, renting a space, and still had a great following, still had great shows. So why don't you talk a little bit about, your background before PianoFight and how it sort of got started, because I know there's a bunch of comedian, it's not just theater, but it's centered on, comedy, I think is the main theme, which comedy, I love.
Comedy and music, I'd say, have been the kind of two things that have driven it for over the years. But yeah, we started our first shows in 2007. It was a play that I'd written, comedy, and me and a couple of buddies were like, all right, let's make it, because nobody else was gonna make it.
Right.
So so we were looking for a theater, and kind of as is the case with a lot of PianoFight's history, we kind of stumbled ass backwards into managing the theater that we were trying to rent, and that was a little converted office space. It was a little 55-seat theater on the second floor of an office building, and it was cool. So we started managing that place, and then we took over the 65-seater across the hall, also converted office space, and then we took over the rehearsal room down the hall, and that was the off-market theater complex on 965 Mission Street on 6th Street. And so we ran those for a few years, and yeah, that's where we met. Tequila shots.
Sure. Yeah, please do.
Society's a construct. There's fucking no laws anymore. You can drink tequila at 9 a.m. like while you're doing laundry. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, why not? It's good. So I want to know what made you guys settle here in San Francisco. I mean, obviously for comedy, there's places like New York, LA. What drew you to San Francisco that really made it, where you guys wanted to plant your roots?
Well, I lived in the Bay when I was a kid. I lived in San Mateo.
Yeah.
In grew up in Belmont for a bit, and and then went to college in New York. And when I went to college, two of my high school buddies moved up here, and so I would come visit them in San Francisco when I was on breaks, and I always had a good time. And then when I graduated in New York, I was like, "Fuck that place."
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad place, just like it just kind of wasn't for me at the time.
Wasn't your scene? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just at the time, and so we moved, or I moved here, kind of with the express purpose of like starting to produce stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Dan Williams and Kevin Fink, these two guys I went to high school with in Santa Barbara, actually, they were all about it also, and so we just started producing, and it seemed I think for me personally, it seemed like a more accessible place to start something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like New York is like so kind of crazy and so big, and so it's like you have to do this, and you have to meet this person, and you have to go through that guy and this gatekeeper, and yada
Right.
yada.
Right.
And so, whereas here it kind of felt a little bit more open, like there's a little more room to maneuver, a little more experimentation, a little more like, yeah, sure, fuck it, we'll give it a shot. Like San
Yeah.
Francisco, it's the most accepting place of anyone on earth, so it felt like a good spot to kind of like hunker down and see what up.
Yeah. So I mean, is that something where it's like shot? I feel bad. I'll take you. I'll give you a shot of beer. That's about all I got right now. But I have bourbon downstairs. It'd take me a while to get it. So maybe I should ask you a question, run down real quick, and grab it. But yeah. So, but no, I was gonna say. So like, so you felt like it was basically more approachable. I mean, that's what compared to LA. The entry, the barrier of entry was limited, especially 20 years ago or whatever, or 15 years ago, right? Like it was like
Yeah.
there was
It
tech
also just
here, right? Like it just hasn't blown up it wasn't blown up the way it is now, right? Like San Francisco has
no,
always been, a place that's been in movies and people have been attracted to, but it was pretty low key back even in the mid 2000s, right? I mean, I don't know if you got a different impression, but
no, I mean I moved here in '06, and I was when I graduated college, and and I've been kind of coming to hang, and party and whatever, kind of during college, and yeah, man, it's just I think also a big part of the reason why I moved here personally was like it just seemed like more fun
yeah,
than I mean, I lived in New York, I had a blast in New York, but it was very much about the hustle,
right,
which I'm
right,
I'm great with. I can hustle with the best of them, but
yeah,
and then LA was just like you have to drive everywhere, and I was like, well, I like tequila, and so that and cars aren't great. So I kind of thought San Francisco feels pretty fun, and the Bay feels fun, and
right,
Oakland the same way too. Like even more so now. Like
yeah, yeah,
Oakland's like where the fun's at.
yeah. I've
It's still
it's
fun in San Francisco, but it's just like, where is it? Where's the fun?
right. Right. Well, and also with the expense, everything getting so expensive, I think that's part of it is there's a certain aspect to kind of that underground feeling when things are underneath the surface when everything's expensive and you're kind of like, Manhattan, like for instance, given a New York analogy, there's stuff going on in Manhattan, but it's really like Brooklyn and Bronx at like where things are going on, right? Like I don't know, and it's
Yeah, where's the preponderance of weird shit, and it's like, well, right in the Bay, it's in Oakland. You know what I
right,
mean? Like
right, right.
it's still in San Francisco, but it's I don't know, man. It's interesting. It's like an interesting time right now for the Bay Area, and it's like it's hard to um, stay really positive about the Bay. I used to just be the biggest booster for Bay Area everything,
Right, right.
and I still kind of am, but
Now it's like, don't come here. It's like, right,
I mean, I'm not that far. I'm not that far yet, but like,
exaggerated, of course, but yeah,
yeah, but it's definitely like harder for, it's like It's like I run a venue, and largely what I do is producing and kind of community organizing, and then kind of you know creative creative is in that too, and I'm a gigging artist also. But like, it's hard to make a living. Like I'm 35, it's
Yeah.
like I don't have a house, I don't have a car. Health insurance is kind of comes in and out when I have enough money. So
Yeah.
it's harder to kind of justify living here when it feels like the the society or community at large, you know, isn't really about what you do.
Right. Well, I want to segue into that because I just pulled up a picture of a sort of a paradoxical picture. It's a crowd shot of your band Californicon busting a groove there.
Oh yeah,
Um,
is the Great American Show?
yeah, I think it is, and basically because you've been that's the premise of the show. It's the Sam Jack podcast subtitle. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. So the idea being, I know it's long and winded, but so are podcasts. So what are you gonna do, right? Uh, so let's see here. I'm gonna take that off, and sorry, I'm just gonna cut to myself so they can see me talking about it. But basically, we're in this life of creative freelancers, and we do professional stuff. We get paid for what we do, but it's not the normal 9 to 5. Like you said, you don't get health insurance. It's not an internet. You don't get paid time off, and it's a blessing and a curse because you obviously are experiencing a setback with this coronavirus stuff, simply because you have to shut down your venue, and so your moneymaker is doing your shows. But at the same time, you already have that mindset of thinking creatively and having multiple revenue streams. So if it's not your band, the California Con, it's we just talked offline while we were setting up. You now doing like virtual shows. So talk a little bit about how the world has sort of come to your mindset now that the regular 9 to 5 economy has been shut down because everyone's at the shelter in place, right?
Yeah, I mean it's yes and no. Like I don't know what the world has come to. Like I said, it's like society's a construct. There's no norms. You can do whatever you want now, except go outside. But like, yeah, I mean what's I do think like the curveball that the economy's just been thrown is like crazy,
Yeah.
and the lasting effects of it are going to be crazy. Um, and for kind of nightlife or service industry or hospitality, those effects are going to be vicious, just like completely vicious. And I think in a couple of months, you're going to, you know, or a month or whatever it is, the city's going to open back up, and you're going to look around and you're going to go like, oh fuck, that restaurant I like isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just it. I mean, you already saw like Slim's closed. There was a
Crazy.
crowd.
And they've been around for like what is it, like almost 30 years or something?
Yeah,
Crazy, right?
you know. And there's a couple other places too that have already kind of just been like we're done. And you know, thank thankfully PianoFight has this kind of really gnarly community around it, that is both big and active and like gives a shit. And so we when we kind of figured out, oh, we have to close, which was a couple of days before they did the shelter in place order.
Yeah.
We were like, we were just we were like, well, it's been a good run, like like we're fucked. And then we kind of sat down and had a meeting all day and tried to figure out what to do. And so we were like, okay, we got to close, and just for the safety and health of our staff and our customers and our artists and all that stuff. And we don't know if we can open back up again. And so like that was just legitimately like I don't know. So we we put together a crowdfunding campaign and just said like, "Yo, here's the deal, community. Like, we're closed, we're fucked. If we don't raise 50 grand, we're not going to open again." And within 10 days, the community had put 50 grand together
Wow.
through this campaign, which was really really nuts. And actually a little bit more because like somebody who saw the campaign like it works for a big company and was like, hey, like I'll do our Christmas party there assuming you're still around, and here's a giant deposit, on the Christmas party. So it was really kind of stunning and
Is
just
that the official Unicorn Hunters? Is that who that is, or is that something different?
no, that's the winner of Short Lived.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to segue. I was trying to show a big check being written to PianoFight, and of course I segued into something totally different. But I apologize. We'll get to short lived in a second because as you were talking, I sort of showed a couple pictures of what you do. But
Cool.
I mean, this all happened. What you're talking about, that story, that all happened in the last couple of weeks, right? I mean,
Yeah, that was like because they did the shelter in place on like the 17th, or it was like St.
right.
Patty's Day went into effect,
Yeah, that's crazy.
which is like cool. I own a bar. Fuck you,
Right. That's one of your top money makers, right?
Yeah,
you know.
like okay, fine. And we closed like a few days before. But yeah, this is just it's really really crazy. The massive wreckage that is going to be left after this is going to be stunning to deal with. I mean, you're in sports. Like, what are like?
Oh yeah. So
What are
what
you
happened?
hearing?
Thank you so much for listening. This is Sam Jack, your host. Make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sam Jack Podcast. Thank you so much. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Viral Media Network 415. The playlist is the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Check out all the other great playlists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the interview. Yeah, so what happened with me, I'll tell you a quick story because my last day was on the 13th. I was working for the Sacramento Kings. I was up in Sacramento, and it was the last game. The NBA was going to call the season the next day, and it was the last game on the West Coast. And it just, I don't know if you remember the Gobert issue where he, like, the what team was he playing for? The Utah Jazz, and he tested positive for it, but he was like thinking that it was no big deal, so he like touched all the microphones during his press conference. Did you see that part?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it turned out that one of the referees from that game was refereeing our game, and so the Pelicans, who were the visiting team against the Kings, got wind of that, and they wouldn't come out. Like we were basically minutes before tip off. We're on the floor. We're doing our live open on ESPN, and our guys at the booth basically turned into like CNN. They turned into like live coverage of like, oh, this game is canceled, coronavirus shut down. Like they had done the anthem. It was shoot around. You've been to live Warriors games, live NBA games where, there's a whole fanfare before the game starts.
Yeah.
And, there's time where they're warming up and they're on the court and, they're vamping for TV time and all that stuff. So we were doing that. Pelicans wouldn't come out. It was like, the court was half empty, like minutes before tip off. And since then they've canceled all the sport. We're like just getting ready for baseball and all this stuff, and yeah, it's been, um, crazy. But that's one of the reasons why this podcast has been resurrected is because I was too damn busy with work for doing the stuff I love. And what I love doing is picking people's brains like yours and getting through this whole thing. Other things that I want to talk about. I want to get more into what you do. You talk a little bit about. The sort of sacrifices you made, and talk more about this virtual tour thing because I'm dealing with the trials and tribulations. We had a little troubleshooting with the video.
Yeah.
It's a brave new world. So talk about how you're setting up this virtual tour, virtual show, and
Yeah.
what your plans are for the future of PianoFight, and then we'll kind of go backwards when you talk more about your different entities.
Sure. Yeah. So we kind of we did this crowdfunding campaign, and on Friday of last week, Um, we have a regular guy who comes in. His name's Max Chanowitz, and he comes into PianoFight and plays piano every in the bar every Friday from 6 to 8. And he's been doing this for 5 years, something like that. I mean, just and he's like a pretty young guy. He's like an architect kind of by day, but this like killer jazz pianist by night. And so he's been doing this forever, and so he hit me up and just said, "Hey, like, what if I just like did a live feed and tried to get some attention and get people to donate to the fundraising campaign?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. Like, let's figure it out." So we sound checked on Facebook Live like the night before. So like I'm on a phone, he's on a phone. We got Facebook Live up, and there's a 20-second delay, and it's like I don't know. And he's testing out microphones and kind of the computer and how does it look and all this shit. And so anyway, we get through it and then and figure it out. And then I just give him access to our Facebook page, and he just logs in and goes live on Friday, and it goes really well. He's got a shitload of people tuned in. It raises something like $2,000 over the 2 hours into the crowdfunding campaign, which is like that's pretty good 2 hours. And so we kind of thought after it, like, oh yeah, like we could just take our venue model, which is, we have space and time basically, and we divvy that up, for different artists. We could just take that and kind of apply that to, some of our web like properties, our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we kind of thought, okay, so I just got on the phone and called 4 musicians and just said, yo, here's what we're thinking. And booked tonight earlier, booked Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 6 to 8.
That's great.
And so we kind of don't really know where this is going to go. We have the core guys from Mission Control, PianoFight, like sketch comedy group. They're going to put together some kind of like weird Zoom interactive boardroom show.
Between all of them, like they'll each be a separate like Zoom person in the meeting, like as opposed to just one feed, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
They're all going to interact with each other, like they're each in a box.
Well, and ideally, because we just bought the Zoom like account or whatever, we were just like, okay, like we'll buy this for a month and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And you can do like polls and Q&As and like
live chat, all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like with an audience in Zoom, because you can like webinar. Thing.
Right. It has this whole other dimension to it.
And 300 people watching or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're gonna write a show. Their whole outfit is that they're a comedy. Their whole bit is that they're a comedy startup, and so they just kind of have lampooned tech culture for the last 10 years in the Bay, and they're hilarious.
Yeah.
So they're working on something like that. I'm working with some of our staff on doing a variety show where we kind of, we get in our chef and a couple of bartenders, and we kind of kick it around where you cut to the bartender and he's like, all right, I'm gonna show you how to make these cocktails. You cut to a chef, and the chef's like, all right, first step in making the fried chicken sandwich is this. Cut to the host. Host is like, all right, yo, like we got our favorite drag performer over in the Castro, like cut to them, cut back to a comic, cut back to chef, cut back to the bartender, cut back, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That could be a lot of fun.
Like they're all correspondents kind of thing, right? They're all like roving reporters on the street kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So
that's cool.
Kind of fun.
Yeah.
And there's some other stuff, comedy baseball. Justin Gomes is kind of working on how to
comedy baseball. Okay. Is that a show that you normally do in live in the venue? So you're trying to turn that into a virtual show?
It's like a joke-fueled video game about sports, and it's amazing. And so he's kind of working on that to try and figure out how to translate that to the internet. And then of course we'll just keep booking like great musicians. So because music's actually like pretty straightforward to translate, like,
right?
Outside of the audio issues, it's like you can just have somebody in a room and play,
right?
And it's cool. So there's probably different kind of like levels of this. Like some of it will just be like, yo, donate, tip the musician, donate to PianoFight. Another one is, here's a ticketed show, buy a ticket, we'll send you a link. Another one is probably like, we'll see if we can do some like private event experiences, that kind of stuff. I don't know
Yeah,
where that's going to go.
like kind of a more higher end experience.
Yeah, like, all right, this is private. Like, we got a bartender, a chef, and like, a crazy musician who's going to just play the whole time, and the bartender and the chef are going to show you how to make stuff, and we'll send you some ingredients ahead of time to go get. And it's a special date night just for you and your partner or whomever it is. So something like that, or then like a lot of these companies who are kind of tech companies and whomever else are kind of looking for online experience things to do with their staff because they can't go to the museum, they can't go for happy hours, right? So
Yeah,
like, can we bring a happy hour to them? It's like maybe.
interesting.
So
Curbside
we'll
pickup.
see how that kind of works, but like I think we're basically that crowdfunding thing gave us some breathing room.
That's tremendous. I mean, that just shows so much love for the community that your community has, your audience has, right?
It was really hard. Like it's hard to overstate the emotions that kind of came along with watching that happen.
Yeah, that's cool. So you talked a little bit about Mission Control. I know I worked with them when we were doing the Variety Society. Those were the main group that came and helped out. But the female, of course, I'm drawing a blank with their group. But
Chardonnay,
I'm sorry,
Chardonnay,
Dardenne. Yeah. So
Chardonnay, like the wine.
yes, Chardonnay. Thank you. Little mix up with there. We'll work on that edit when we
You'll
publish
get it
it.
in post.
Yeah, exactly. So Chardonnay, Mission Control. Um, I feel like that sort of the different facets and the different subgroups that were sort of the collective piano fight helped not only shape and build your community and your audience and your success, but also in these times of troubles, like that's where it all comes in, right? You've over time you've built an authentic fan base that you can't create with Instagram posts or social media campaigns or anything like that, right? So when it comes time for people really wanting to, they look to you as a pillar in the community, a place to get great art, great comedy, great music. Um, and so, like, talk about how those different facets sort of came together to build PianoFight up and sort of create that kind of network. And like, we all grew up in the like Voltron Transformer days, right? You kind of feel like they're all different pieces of the puzzle coming together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so when we started, there was not many of us, and I think our first year we were just kind of like doing anything we could. Just because I got handed the keys to a hunk of downtown real estate on my 23rd
That's
birthday,
pretty
and
sweet.
like
And real estate was still relatively cheap back then,
it
right?
was, yeah. I mean, it's not
Relatively,
nowhere close to what it is now,
right?
and like the we it wasn't like all we had to do was try and figure out how to pay rent, and like as a 23-year-old, we all had jobs too, and roughly, or most of us had jobs, and so nobody was really caring about like making a ton of money or whatever. We were just trying to like have some fun and like drink some beers and do some comedy and play some music. And so we kind of were just doing plays and doing whatever for about a year, and then we did this show called Short Lived, and that show was kind of developed it as a audience judged theater competition, and it's evolved since it started in 2007 quite a bit, but it brought in all these people, and it brought in the core guys from Mission Control. It brought in the core ladies who went on to form Chardonnay, and just all these other folks, and kind of process of doing that show every year, where you kind of keep bringing in all these folks who are like really hungry and talented and cool. Um, those folks who are hungry and talented and cool, you're like, hey, you want to like do something else later next year or whatever, and they go, yeah, definitely. And so um, that kind of that that short-lived kind of like propelled this community to grow. And as the community was growing, it kind of found different little groups within itself and said, "Oh, I'm a group. Oh, I'm a different group." And like that's how the band formed too. California Corns was. I said
Yeah.
to Duncan, who's one of the four guys at PianoFight, I was like, "Hey, like, can you give me a I need a house band for short lived in 2010?" And he was like, okay. So he went and talked to his buddy Evan, who was also in Mission Control, and they had this idea to do a German minimalist surf rock band.
That was
And
Das Hausband. Das
that was
Hausband.
Das Hausbahn.
That's what
And
I remember.
yeah, and so Das Hausbahn was the kind of first iteration of California Corns, which has been through quite a few iterations actually over the years, the 10 years that it's been around. But yeah, I mean, like when you just kind of you know start a snowball at the top of the mountain and you just push it down, it just keeps going and kind of gathering and gathering and gathering more snow until it's just like massive, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the deal. And so we're, you know, even once we kind of built the venue, like same deal, that's that the venue came out of those groups, that core group of maybe about 30-ish artists, and the kind of community of people that have been formed around that, and that kind of got the venue built. And then once the venue is built, now you have this kind of even broader community, because you have thousands of artists and tens of thousands, 50,000 people a year and a couple of few thousand artists a year coming through that place to see or make shows.
Right. Right.
And it's just like, that's after 5 years, like that's a big number. And so,
And it builds from there, and those people, it becomes that sort of organic, viral, if you will, sort of word of mouth, and this creative will go tell their other creative friends that will bring them back into the fold, that kind of thing, right?
absolutely, because then we start doing like Sketch Fest in year two of the venue being open, right? We're hosting like, in year two, I think we were hosting like 30 something Sketchfest shows,
Yeah.
and now we host like 60 in 3 weeks.
That's
And
crazy.
so you
That's
have all these
crazy.
groups from around the country,
Yeah.
like a bunch of Canadians, a bunch of people from LA and New York, and they all come in and like they're like, "Hey, this is really cool," and we're like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's dope." We're like, "Okay, cool." But then they kind of tell their friends who tell their friends and all that kind of shit. And like this one, it was great. This one lady came in and she was like, "Hey, I got to show you this," and she like pulls her sleeve up. She's like a comic in a sketch group from LA. She pulls her sleeve up, and it's like she's got a California corn tattooed on her on her arm. So the California corn is the big mural that's behind the bar. That's the name of the bear with the wings and the horn.
Right. Right.
And that's what we eventually named the band after, because we were the house band of PianoFight, and we're like, okay, we'll name the band after the California Corn. And so she comes in and she's like, check this out. And we're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, why do you have this? Why do you have our, fucking protector animal on your arm
Yeah.
permanently? And she was like, well, I came up here for Sketchfest last year. I just had a really good time, and I get a tattoo every year. And I was like, it was at a point in my life where I needed to have some support and some love, and I had a blast, and I got support and I got love, and so I got it tattooed on my arm. And you're just like, that is cool. And so it's just kind of crazy when you open your doors and you kind of say like, hey, like come make shit here, or come see shit, or come just make shit and see shit and have a burger and drink some beers. It's like people really start to ascribe like a level of emotional bond that like it always surprises me. I'm like, oh yeah, like that makes sense, but I you kind of don't see it when your head's down in it. but it's cool, man. And so yeah, it's just kind of grown very organically over the years.
Thank you so much for listening. This is Sam Jack, your host. Make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sam Jack Podcast. Thank you so much. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Viral Media Network 415. The playlist is the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Check out all the other great playlists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the interview. That's really great, man. And if you're just joining us, we're talking with Rob Reddy. He's the artistic director at PianoFight. Rob, thanks so much. I got some more questions for you. If you're still into it, we're doing good. All right, cool. We can have a digital cheers again if you want. Cheers.
Cheers.
Woo!
What do you drink? I still can't see you, Sam. What are you drinking?
Sorry, yeah. So this is the another. I'm gonna hold it up to the camera here. This is another. It's kind of like the California corn, the Bear Unicorn. Only this is old school. This is the Boont Amber Ale. They call it a beer. It's a bear with antlers, so a cross between a deer and a bear. A beer, right? Of the famous Boont Amber Ale.
Delish.
So that's another California. You know. Tidbit there, but I'm sure you weren't ripping them off. It's definitely a unique logo, but it's kind of that same play of like having that love of the California Republic. Oh, you're gonna bring out the crusher in me, man, the California Crusher. But yeah, so
hey, actually, speaking of animals, you'll appreciate
yes,
this.
tell me, please tell me.
Let's see. You can see that, right?
Oh, the San Francisco Sea Lions. I like it.
So what's crazy is that ACT opened this play, and it's on the other side here. ACT opened this play on like Wednesday, the 12th or something like that. And my girlfriend and I went, and because the associate artistic director is a buddy. His name's Andy Donald, and he's
shout out Andy,
huge Giants fan.
Yeah.
And his grandmother had like season tickets to the Giants for 40 years and saved scorecards for fucking 40 years.
Wow.
And so anyway, he was like really, really happy to get this play, Tony Stone, which is about a female player in the Negro Leagues.
Okay.
And so it's a baseball play, it's like it's a play, but it's about baseball. And so he got it like he partnered with the Giants, like
oh wow,
like get promo and sponsorships, and that's where like the hat came from, and like the show got written up in the sports section of the Chronicle, which is like hands down his like I feel like his crowning achievement as a San Francisco sports fan and theater guy. He's like, I got to play this sports section. You're like, you're the man.
That's awesome.
And so I brought him a game ball. Like I had like an old baseball, and I just kind of like wrote some shit on it, like a game and like opening day, Tony Stone.
Oh, that's sweet. That's very nice.
Signed it, gave it to him, and we got these hats, and so that was opening night, right?
Yeah.
They didn't do another performance. They like had to close the next day.
Wow, because of all this coronavirus stuff.
Yeah, because of all the coronavirus.
Oh man,
this is my coronavirus, my quarantine hat.
Yeah, and so you're worried that it might not get picked back up. You're worried that once everything comes back, it's going to be. Oh,
it's
sorry.
Not. I mean, no, the play is going to go on, but the ACT version of it is done.
Right.
I think they filmed it, and I think they're offering. If people are interested, you can figure out how they're offering like a stream of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have to buy a ticket or what, but like you can watch it online if you want
to. Okay. Cool, man. Well, shout out. And that's just a good example of like no matter what you believe in, if you have enough fortitude and chutzpah or just belief in what you do, you can get a major baseball team behind it. You can get funding, all this kind of stuff, right? And the situation is unfortunate that the coronavirus shut them down, but he was still successful because he got it out there. And hey, if they even recorded it, even better, right? We got a documentation of it.
Yeah.
So that's fabulous. What I wanted to get back to is you talked about the evolution of PianoFight, and how the venue came to be and how you guys built it up, and then we even touched upon San Francisco is getting expensive and all this kind of stuff, and you guys are in the heart of the Tenderloin, which for those of you who don't know, in San Francisco is pretty. It's like Skid Row in LA, right? It's really bad. Talk about how there's a whole gentrification issue of people in poor areas getting displaced, which I think on the surface level, some people might say that you guys are just coming in and, but talk about how you've actually been able to come into that community and actually improve the community and the outreach that you do in that area.
Sure.
And that kind of evolution of PianoFight more than just a venue, right?
Yeah. So, we've been so our the first place off market that I was the where we know each other from is about two and a half blocks away from our current place. And it's not technically the Tenderloin; it's technically Soma,
Right.
but it's basically the Tenderloin.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, I don't know. It might no. I think Tenderloin stops at Market,
Right.
but it's connected by a 6th Street, and 6th Street is like its own kind of comical mess of like sadness and absolute joy.
Yeah.
And the Tenderloin is similar to that too. But like handful of facts about the Tenderloin. One is it's the most concentrated neighborhood of children in the city.
Yeah. A
It's
lot
the
of
most
people don't know that.
concentrated.
A lot of people
Yeah,
don't know that. Yeah.
most concentrated neighborhood of working families in the city. One of the most concentrated neighborhoods of immigrants in the city. The Tenderloin is not that big, like geographically,
Yeah.
and a lot of the housing in the TL is actually protected housing. It's protected kind of.
Low income Section 8 kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Section 8, but yes, that's the idea. It's subsidized housing, right? Below market. And there's a a nonprofit called the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation. They have something like 43 buildings in the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin is not that big, right?
No.
And that's just one of them, right? There's another one called Tenderloin Health Clinic, aka THC. They have maybe 15 buildings in the TL. A lot of this stuff is like heavily, heavily protected from years of kind of community organizing efforts, and all this stuff has been written into the city charter to protect it. And so when you talk about like gentrification and displacement, it's absolutely an issue, but because of the very specific situation that exists in the Tenderloin, displacement is actually less of an issue than it would be in other neighborhoods because of all this protected housing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just some facts of the TL. So when we came in, it took us a long time to build the place because we had to raise like a shitload of money and then build it when we were like in our late 20s, and we didn't know how to do real estate development, right? Or raise money or like any of that stuff. And so we kind of learned all that stuff on the fly as we were doing it, and got it done. But when we started to kind of be down there like regularly towards the end of, because we were probably down there for about a year before it actually opened.
Yeah.
And just kind of building it ourselves. Like we did a lot of the work on it, and just kind of getting shit together and getting shit ready. We got synced up with a guy named Del Seymour, who at the time was running Tenderloin walking tours. And Del Seymour has this like really crazy story, basically being a pimp and a drug dealer in the Tenderloin for 30 years. And then at some point, he got clean and he got sober. How he got clean was the owner of Original Joe's, which is used to be at 144 Taylor, which is where Piano Fight is now. The
Yeah,
owner
that's
of
the
Original
venue.
Joe's,
That's where your venue is, the Original
yeah,
Joe's, which is a very landmark like restaurant in San Francisco, old school San Francisco restaurant, right?
very old school, absolutely. The owner of Original Joe's, Maria Dugan, Dell was like sleeping in the doorway every night, and she was like, "Get your ass inside! Like, I'm just gonna buy you a hotel room upstairs." Because there was an SRO upstairs, and he was like, "Oh, okay." And so they formed a relationship. He started working at Original Joe's, and basically got his life together. And so in that process, kind of years later, he started the Tenderloin walking tours, which are incredible, and everybody should go on them. And he would be giving these tours and walking by Piano Fight while we were kind of building, and we'd met him at a handful of community meetings. So I'd holler at him and just say, "What's up, Dell?" And then at some point he was like, "Hey, do you want me to make the Piano Fight like a stop on the tour?" I said, "Absolutely." And so that was kind of like going on, and at some point we opened, and he would bring tours by, and I realized like he
Hmm.
was doing this during the day, and he would have like a tour in the morning and a tour at night, and then have nowhere to go, kind of in between,
Wow.
right? Like because he lives in like I don't know Antioch or something like that at this point, and so I was like, do you want to just like work out of the bar? Because we all work. I do. I work out of the like I'm on my laptop at the bar all day
Yeah.
doing all the admin shit.
Like you don't really have
So
an office, right? You just
yeah, the bar is my office, which is dangerous. But he he was like, yeah, that's cool. I can just like sit at a table, and I was like, absolutely, man. Like whatever you need. Okay, great. So then at some point he starts talking to us. This is like months later, or like 20. So we opened at the end of 14, and around summer of 2015, he was like, hey, I want to do these like classes for Tenderloin folks to teach them about like how to get a job. So like how to do a resume, how to do a job interview, like what do they have to wear, like how do you got to get a haircut, like
right.
how you got to respond to emails and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, that's dope. Like, do you need a classroom? Like, do it here. And he goes, really? I'm like, yeah, come on. And he's like, okay. So he started Code Tenderloin. And Code Tenderloin, which I'm still on the board of, they started, and I think that first year, the whole budget, he funded like the whole thing. And the whole budget was like maybe $4,000 tops, right? Like
Yeah.
for the first year.
For
All
the
the
whole year.
volunteers, no expenses. Like it was just him pulling people off the street and saying like, "Here's how to get a job," right? Because the theory is, if you can get somebody a job, they can kind of like get their shit together, right? Like
Yeah.
they can get an apartment, they can get healthcare, they can get their life kind of on track in a way that it wasn't.
Yeah.
So that first year is like nothing. So we did a like it was really successful, but there was no budget. We did a fundraiser last year at this like fancy advertising firm called Argonaut, which is actually in an old SF venue now that's been converted into kind of like hip like officey space.
It's not
Um,
it's not Maritime Hall, is it?
no, I'm blanking on the name. It's the one right next to the Regency Ballroom.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
it's I can't remember the name, but like it was one of 7 big venues in San Francisco in like the '60s that
Right.
like the Dead played at, or Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's a Bill Graham venue or something.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so we did this fundraiser there. That night, they raised like 45K for a
Wow.
night,
Wow.
and the budget for all of 2019 was something like $400,000,
Wow.
and which is just
That's incredible.
stunning.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Just stunning. So they still run classes out of Piano Fight 4 days a week during the day, because like we're not using the theaters during the day, because like indie artists, you know, do their shit at night.
Right.
So they run classes during the day. They have started up other whole programs like a job, like a coding class, coding boot camp, and some other stuff. And like There are other tech companies that host them for those things that require kind of like more high tech stuff.
Yeah.
But we work. So we work a lot with Code Tenderloin. If everybody's interested, you should go check them out. They really make a fucking difference in the world, and their growth should kind of explain that. And then we also work with like the Tenderloin CBD, which has a, is kind of the like community benefit district, which is landlords, business owners, and residents, and just trying to make the neighborhood better. Is one thing they do is safe passage, which essentially gets volunteers to walk all the kids to and from school every day, and make sure that they don't get like wander their way into the middle of a drug deal or just a fight or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we kind of like we've hosted their benefits. We've worked with the Tenderloin Museum to do their gala. We've worked with Vets Alley, which is a project that paints murals in this alleyway, and the murals they teach all these veterans how to paint these murals. We work with Meals on Wheels. We do all kinds of stuff that's just in and of the neighborhood. We host happy hours for TNDC, for THC. We just do all this kind of stuff because that's who we are as humans. Like we just care. Like we want to know what's going on around us. We want to be as helpful as we can. We want to be in and of the world that we live in. And what's crazy is like all that shit that like never gets any money, right? Like
Right.
all that stuff like never makes any fucking money. But like then when you're at a point where you're like, hey, I like really need some money to make sure this thing doesn't die.
Yeah.
The community's like, here you go.
Wow.
Here it is.
Wow.
So I don't know. What goes around comes around,
Yeah. No, that's incredible. So how does that lead you into the future? I mean, you said it was a bit of a buffer, but where do you see you guys see this coming back to? You said that things are not going to be the same even when this shelter in place, a lot of things are going to be affected and be at, say half mast or not as capacity or hours are going to be limited or whatever. Like, where do you guys see it as a mix between these virtual shows and live shows, or some sort of like different model? I mean, where do you guys see the future for? I mean, are you trying to stay optimistic, or are you just sort of hunkering down and just waiting for business as usual to come back?
I think we are actually very optimistic about the future. Ideally, yeah, this like digital program that we're kind of starting to build in this platform, like hopefully we can figure it out and like see where it goes. I think you have to imagine that even once they say, okay, you can go outside again, they're not going to say, okay, you can go to Coachella. Like there's going to be a ramp up period for events and groups and large groups and that kind of thing. Like,
right.
They're not going to lift the shelter in place and then the Warriors are going to play a game the next day to a full stadium. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then there's also like, they're not going to lift the shelter in place and everyone in society is going to be like, cool, everything's safe now, better go out. Like there's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, I could still die if I go outside. Well, I'm going to watch Netflix. So you got to imagine that the kind of landscape after this is going to be different. And for probably a while, for probably like a year or two or three, And of course, like, if they come up with a cure and a vaccine and stuff like that, that probably changes the scenario. But even then, that thing is probably a year away. So the situation is going to be different. But I think the reason that we're optimistic is, we we raised 50 grand in 10 days from a community that doesn't really have any money. It's artists and it's, Tenderloin people and it's me and it's, like none of us are rich, Like I think we got like three or $4,000 donations, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the rest of it was $5 to $100 donations, right? And
Wow.
so it's not like somebody came in with like 20, right? Like it was 750 odd people who in 10 days put that together. And so when you just kind of like think through that, and it's like, okay, I don't really know how this is totally going to work. Like I can have some ideas, like the digital thing, like maybe we could push that and it'll go somewhere. We can continue running PianoFight, maybe that'll go somewhere. Maybe we can expand somewhere else to Oakland, and that'll go somewhere. Maybe we can do some bigger shows. Maybe we can host, run a bigger venue. Like there's all these different ways that PianoFight and this community in general could grow.
Right.
And I don't exactly know what they're going to be, but I am optimistic just based on the simple fact that, like, when faced with a decision of like, should we let it close or not, the advantage was like, absolutely not. Like there's no way we can let this close. It's too important. We have too much fun there, and it's too much of a piece of not only the creative community in San Francisco, but also of the Bay Area and also of the neighborhood and also of kind of all these different things. And so, like I said, I don't kind of know where the wind is going to take us, but I feel like we have full sails and, the seas may be choppy, but we'll get through them.
Yeah, and that's got to be something that like kind of fuels the fire as well, as far as like that outpour that internally just gives you more motivation to sort of carry on and spark your creativity and sort of in that development phase of like, what more can I do to reach out and do more for this community? You're going to want to do more for them because they've reached out to you and helped you out so much, right?
Absolutely. And so, it's like, well, where will that go? And it's like, like we have little sneaky producer moves that we use, and we've got some irons in the fire,
Yeah.
which we'll see what happens. But I think some good stuff, maybe just around the corner, and we'll see where it goes. But hopefully there are some big moves and some great moves right around the corner that kind of work out some stuff that we've been working on for months now, and this coronavirus thing doesn't fuck it all up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it will. I'm positive. So.
Cool.
Yeah, stay tuned. I can't talk about them, but.
Thank you so much for listening. This is Sam Jack, your host. Make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sam Jack Podcast. Thank you so much. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Viral Media Network 415. The playlist is the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Check out all the other great playlists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the interview. Okay, fair enough. We didn't talk too much about the mixtape. Do you want to touch on that briefly before? Because I got something to cap this off with. But if you want to kind of plug that a little bit,
I'll just plug that as a thing. Once we have kicked coronavirus in the balls, anybody who's out there who's like aspiring kind of comic or musician or juggler or poet or magician, PianoFight is doing a thing called Mixtape Open Mic. It's on Monday nights. It is a partly scripted, immersive show that takes place in the bar set at an open mic. And so what that means is that we have a group of probably 7 or 8 folks who are kind of ringers, right? And so every week we write a bunch of scenes that happen in and around the bar that we're all in, and they kind of relate to, or not, us going up on stage and doing open mic bits. But then,
so you guys kind of have a bag of tricks
Right.
and
And then
then
there's 8 to 12 open mic slots available every night
to sort of see, right? Okay,
for people to sign up for.
yeah.
So it's like it's an actual show. It has an actual audience that has some forethought and scripts and funny stuff and little tricks and really talented group of writer, musician, actor, directors making it. And then half the show you can come be a part of and sign up and do it. So whenever we get back from quarantine, Monday nights at PianoFight, mixtape open mic is the thing to look for.
That one's a little hard, little more hard to do virtually, I would say.
It's a little weirder, yeah.
Because you don't have the live audience. You could maybe do the contestant, like each other group that enters, like as their own call-in, person, and I guess the audience is just the individuals that tap in, but that would be kind of complicated. But it sounds
Yeah.
like fun. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I just can't wait to see what comes out of it, and where the future holds, because you guys are obviously doing great things, and it's interesting to see the progression. As someone who's caught it from kind of like peripheral, tapped in a few times and been there for a couple of film mixers, and seen some good shows and collaborated a little bit with you guys. But it's great
Yeah.
to see you guys build and where you guys have come, and seen that team effort, and
Thanks, man.
just where that community comes in, and hearing the most recent story is just amazing. So on that note, we're going to talk a little bit more, just like kind of coronavirus conspiracy thing, just to kind of lighten up the show, and kind of end it on a funny note. And so
All
I'm going to
right.
grill you with some questions. So first of all, some people say that this is like an inoculation ruse, that it's basically to get people to take a vaccine, and then we'll be all under some sort of like mind control. I'm a huge, like, film buff of these crazy cult classic sci-fi movies. These people like kind of have this vision of this sort of cult inoculation with the coronavirus. Some
Uh
people
huh.
say it has to do with the economy. Now you see this $1 trillion, $2 trillion stimulus package being set up, which oh wait, hold on. Okay, there we go. It's now okay. Now we're just funneling money into businesses. I'm gonna hear your take on it. Crazy cat lady, go.
That has to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I mean, like, no offense to anybody who believes it, but I do not believe it. That's it's like, yeah, like people get sick. This shit is scary. Like,
Yeah,
like it. Maybe sure, but it's gonna kill like hundreds of thousands of people potentially.
yeah.
And maybe way more. Like, it could be in the millions, and it's like they just don't. Our government and other governments, these are politicians, and they are not well organized enough to do
No,
any of this
absolutely
shit.
not. Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. And then did you see the clips from, like, obviously, uh, during the weekend, some people are sneaking out to Ocean Beach and to Chrissy Field and stuff, but also like in Florida, the spring break, everyone's on the
Yeah,
beach there.
yeah.
I don't just want to get your take on that reaction, and just like trying your hardest to shelter in place, but I just got to hit those waves, man. I just got to hit those waves, right? Like,
I mean, like my girlfriend and I went for a walk on Saturday and Sunday. But on Saturday we went just for a walk around the city because we've been cooped up all week, and got some Chinese food to go, and ended up sitting down and over by like aquatic park, and like about 20 feet away from other people who were sitting there, and we ate some Chinese food, and then we walked home, and
nice, nice.
that felt fine to me.
Yeah,
Even though I was kind of like, wait a minute, isn't this what they're saying we shouldn't do? But I think like and like the spring breakers, it's like that's probably like a little more egregious or a lot more egregious, depending. But I think the general thing is like I don't fucking know. They don't fucking know. Like
Right.
where is like I am obviously not a doctor. They are obviously not, you know, doctors, and so you have to rely on your kind of leaders and your elected officials and the smart people. And if the smart people say do X, Y, Z, then you should do it to the best of your ability. But if they don't, like if they don't say, if the president doesn't come out and say like, hey, you're on lockdown, like don't go anywhere, like the health and safety of humans is more important than the S&P 500, then like the it's not the fault of a 20-year-old who's kind of dumb and 20
Yeah.
and wants to party and booked his vacation months ago and like spent all his money. It's like there's no elected official who said you can't do that, and if you come to it, we're going to arrest your ass and throw you back to wherever you came from. Nobody said that, and so we have to rely on the people who know more than we do to tell us what the fuck to do and what's safe and what's not. And if they don't, then it's on fucking them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of people might be scared too because it can get to a point where they might, like they did in China, like initiate martial law, and they just literally, tanks are rolling in the street and they shut us down. This is America. We have certain freedoms where it's a lot harder to do that, but it's been done before. You know what I mean? So I think some people have those fears, but I think it's good to kind of strike that balance and have caution, but at the same
Agreed.
time, have some brevity about it and have some sanity about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's called like there was a clip. It was on CNN. It was like Jake Tapper, like
Yeah,
just like yelling at. It was like a clip of people walking along the Embarcadero in San Francisco,
yeah,
and Jake Tapper got really mad. Jake Tapper. I fucking hate Jake Tapper, by the way.
yeah. He's weird.
He's a piece of shit. In 2008 or 7, he wrote some article for like CBS News about how Obama may or may not have been sneaking cigarettes, and I just lost my mind. I was like, who cares? Like, why are you talking about this? Like, please
Right,
talk about something that's football.
right,
And he has never learned his lesson. So, but he got really mad about this, and it's like, it's not social isolation; it's social distancing. So it's like,
right,
stay a good distance away from each other.
right,
Don't cough on each other,
right,
and like be respectful and don't go out much. Decide
right.
to get some exercise and some, lunch meat.
Take out Chinese food. Well, speaking of that too, I think it's good that we're getting curbside pickup and all this kind of stuff because as we're seeing, if like we get a complete quarantine, then these businesses, like we've seen how much this has affected the economy from what we talked about with PianoFight to mom and pop restaurants, like you alluded to before. Like, hey, a certain percentage of them aren't going to be around when this is all said and done because they weren't able to hang on. I mean, I know someone that works at a corporate venue that does corporate events, and they had to let him go.
Yeah,
Uh,
the unions are fucked. Like,
yeah, yeah.
so many people.
It's
So many
crazy.
people.
Okay, so on a more positive note, I want to ask you what are certain recommendations that you have, books you're reading, podcasts, mine, right? No. uh,
Not me.
yeah. YouTube channels you follow, other sort of things or exercises you do to kind of keep the mundane or like you said, you go out the house a little bit. What other things you're doing or recommendations you might have for that kind of thing?
All right, so
With
this is a
visual,
book
I
I'm
love
reading
it.
right now.
Oh, great.
Uh,
The
it's called
Art
The
of
Art of
Racing.
Racing in the Rain, and
Gareth.
it's a
Gareth.
dog. It's about a dog,
I
and
love
it's
it.
told from a dog's perspective.
Wow.
It's a very
I have the
sweet.
same hair designer as a golden retriever.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I don't know if you could
Good
tell.
boy. He's a good boy.
Nice.
I'm reading that right now. I'm listening to the podcast from the Times. I listen to that most mornings.
Okay.
Um, I absolutely crushed last week the Newsroom,
Okay.
which is an old Aaron Sorkin show.
Yeah, yeah. Not too old. A few years back, maybe 4 or 5 years, right?
A little longer. It was like 11, 12, 13.
Oh, really? Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but maybe, I don't know. But anyway, I love that show. The Expanse is a great sci-fi show.
Okay. Okay.
Um, if you go on Spotify and just search coronavirus, so many people have made like dope playlists,
Okay.
which is pretty fun. And then just really hunkering into Bree got us a record player for Christmas, and so for the first couple months of this year, I was buying one or two records every week, and so we have a small but tasteful record collection,
Okay.
which burning a hole through. And then I actually found I thought I didn't have it, but after rooting around in my sock drawer to try and find some weed,
Nice.
I found my old California Corn's first EP on
Ooh.
vinyl,
Ooh,
and
yeah. On vinyl, nonetheless. Yeah.
I busted that out and played it for Bree, and she was like, "It's very sexy," and I was like, "Oh, thank you." And so yeah, we're listening to records. We got some books. We got some shows, and Bree's slowly trying to convince me to do yoga with her, which I'm sure I will at some point, but haven't quite got there.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I'm a huge vinyl guy, so just to hear that you guys are playing vinyl just
Yeah,
lightens my day. And I gotta ask you, like, I'm sure you grew up listening to some vinyl. There's some sort of feeling you get with like the process of pulling out the record and looking at the liner notes and being able to see the album artwork like at full gap, be able to, instead of a tiny CD or a little screen on the computer kind of out on.
yeah.
So tell me about like, sort of rediscovering that, just your own in the last, couple of months.
Yeah, it's special. I think there's also something to all of those things are like kind of like the physical, some of the physical joys of it, right? Which are similar to like having a book and going, and having a bookmark, and being like underlining things and turning the
Yeah.
page corner and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there's also something too of like just like deep listening, where it's like, okay, I only have 30 records, right? Like I don't have that many records. But one I bought kind of randomly was Elton John's second record called Tumbleweed Connection,
Okay.
and I never would have bought that record. It's awesome, it's
Yeah.
fucking awesome. I never would
Yeah.
have listened to it outside of the fact that I was like Elton John. All right, I'm gonna buy an Elton John record, and it's amazing. And so that kind of like deep listening that, in some respects, like you're forced to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, because the analogness of it forces you into kind of listening to it to a whole side of an album, and then kind of the rest of the album versus a playlist of 40 people or what have you. And so it's just like it's that piece of it, of that kind of really learning something and like appreciating the ins and outs of it and the whys and the how it makes you feel and the sound of it, the little different crackles here and there. It's like you really get to know something, and it's charming, and there's nothing like it.
Cool. So that's awesome. I think that's a great place to end this because it's talking about how awesome vinyl is, and that's just music to my ears. No pun intended. So I want to thank you for joining us, and just to leave it on a tail end of a plug, you can go to pianofight.com to check your schedule. Tell us more about how if you're still raising money. I saw on your landing page it shows help us donate to the COVID-19 fund. Talk a little bit more about that and just other shows you have coming up, how they can tap in to the Zoom conferences and that kind of thing.
Sure. The situation is fucked. We don't know when it's going to be over, so we're going to leave the crowdfunding. We hit our goal, but we're going to leave it up. And if you're somebody who, has a good salary and you can't, you're not getting laid off and you can't go out and spend money at the bars and the restaurants and the vacations right now, then, there's plenty of very, very deserving people and organizations, and I would say we're one of them. So if you can donate, please do. If you can share our kind of message, please do. And if you are interested in kind of checking out some really, really cool musicians and other folks from around the Bay Area and around the country, comedy, music, we're kind of gearing up into this. If you just go to pianofight.com, we'll have a home slider up there probably tomorrow talking about the virtual venue, which we're going to build kind of together. And you can always reach out at Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and tell us, like, what do you want to see? What are you interested in? And we'll listen. So please do check us out, pianofight.com. And when we finally do open up, come see a show, come have a burger, come have a beer. I'll have one with you. Or at least I'll have a shot of tequila with you. That's kind of what I like to do. So cheers.
That sounds good, man. Cheers to you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Sam Jack Podcast. And we'll catch you next time. Rob from PianoFight, thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your vision, your dreams, your hopes, and your prayers with us. We'll see you next time. I'm Sam Jack from the Sam Jack Podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. This is Sam Jack, your host. Make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sam Jack Podcast. Thank you so much. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Viral Media Network 415. The playlist is the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Check out all the other great playlists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much.